It's Wednesday Addams. I see you're trying to distract yourself from your own banal thoughts. Let me help. Here's a recording thing made of my latest root canal.
Wednesday, Season 2, begins August 6th, only on Netflix.
We
are
Cultivate.
We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Yield Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Savage.
Hello.
Hi.
We were just discussing this, but my name has changed. So that was the first time we've used it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird.
It is. Also, it has been your new last name for
a while.
A few months at this point. So
yeah.
I just recently thought to myself, oh, should I be using her new last name? I'll ask.
Yeah. So we're starting strong.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and babies.
Mama never said I was a smart man. All right. I have nothing in either cubby or closet. So
nice.
This week's episode is going to be a little bit of a long one, so let's crack into it.
Okay.
We're going to be discussing George Big Nose Parrott, or Parrott.
Oh. Okay.
He has a literal huge nose. It looks kind of like a beak. Information was pulled from the following sources: a 2024 Cowboy State Daily article by Andrew Rossi, 2024 Only in Wyoming article by Kim Magarasi, 2023 Ephraim Sarah Shriar PhD blog post, 2023 Legends of America article by Kathy Alexander, 2023 Teal Spring Sheridan Wyoming post by C. Vanoy, 2021 Sweetwater Now article, 2020 John Brassard Jr. blog post, 2020 Notes from the Frontier article, 2018 All That's Interesting article by Andrew Milne, 2017 Amusing Planet article by Kaushik Atawari, 2017 Atlas Obscura article by Eric Grundhauser, 2014 Wyoming History article by Lori Van Pelt, 1881 The Democratic Leader article, 1880 The Democratic Leader articles, Find a Grave, Weird History Facts, and Wikipedia.
Nice. Extensive. Very thorough.
And thank you to Curie Ann for her research assistance on this episode. And links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes.
Nice.
We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Yield Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
In 1881, a Wyoming outlaw was hanged without trial. But that wasn't the end of his story. It was only the beginning of his transformation.
So his death was his transformation.
Yes, and we will get into it.
Dang. So we're starting cinematically.
Mm-hmm.
Right, from his death first. We're Benjamin Buttoning the man.
We are.
Yeah.
George Parrott was born on March 20th, 1834 at Montbéliard, France.
Ooh.
Yeah. George left France in 1862 from the port of Le Havre, leaving his wife and child behind.
Not great, but okay.
Yeah. It's unclear why exactly he left when he did, although it's believed he went to America to seek his fortune. as many people did at that
Yeah.
time.
Because, I mean, even in France, I mean, the famine, like the weather issues and crop damage extended to France too during that time. So it makes sense that he would be like, I can make so much more money.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go. And
Yeah,
she's like, you're not doing anything here, so leave it.
he was like, okay, bye.
Good luck. Bye.
George arrived on April 17th, 1862, at the port of New York. Known as Big Nose George, Big Beak Parrott, George Manuse, and George Warden, he wound up in Wyoming during the American Wild West.
Interesting to have a Frenchman in the Wild West, but sure. Okay.
Yeah, it was a little strange.
Yeah.
George was a member of a gang of 7 other outlaws, led by Sim Jan, that specialized in robbing freight wagons and stagecoaches in the Powder River area. And unlike in our previous episode on Highwaymen, which was very timely,
Yeah.
where all the currency was in metal bars, at this time in history, it was paper money, and stagecoaches were attractive prey for robbers looking to make a lot of money very quickly.
Yeah. Makes sense.
George often hid out at Frank James's Little Goose Cabin in the Bighorn Mountains, and also had a
Love
cabin
that.
near the Fort Fetterman to Fort McKinney Stage Road.
Okay. So probably like a main thoroughfare, essentially.
Yeah. Not much else is known about George until August 16th, 1878, at which point he would have been roughly 44 years old.
Okay.
At that time, he and his cohorts, Frank McKinney, Joe Manuse, Jack Campbell, John Wells, Tom Reed, Frank Toll, and Dutch Charlie Burress, decided to up their game from stagecoaches to trains, with their first target being a Union Pacific train that was carrying payrolls for their employees.
That's your first one.
Mm-hmm.
That's like discovering baseball and deciding you're going to be in the major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no.
Yeah.
What?
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible idea.
The group located a stretch of tracks outside Medicine Bow River in Wyoming that was out of the way but along the train route.
Mm-hmm.
So the outlaws pulled one of the spikes out of the timbers that lay under the rails. This deformation of the track would be enough to derail the train, but they had to make it look normal.
Mm-hmm.
So the men removed some telegraph wire and wrapped it around the spike, securing it tightly before pushing it back into the rail. They then unspooled the wire as they went to hide behind some sagebrush near the tracks. The plan was to pull the spike loose before the train engineers had time to stop, which would derail the train.
Yeah.
They even tested how well it would work, and it went off without a hitch.
Mm-hmm.
So they quickly reset the trap and waited for the train to come around the bend, because they could hear it in the distance.
I'm sure they could, and I bet they were freaking out. The adrenaline at that time must have been insane.
Unfortunately for George and his gang,
Uh-huh.
instead of a train coming around the bend, it was a group of railroad workers. The section crew saw the dislodged spike and immediately set to work repairing the track.
Well, yeah, because that's their job. Oh, no.
With the foreman riding back to the train to report that a section of bad track was being repaired. So before the crewmen got there, they had pulled the spike because they could hear the train. So thankfully they didn't catch the wire around the spike and then be like, what's going on over here?
Oh my gosh.
George and his men weren't happy when it became apparent that their plan had failed.
Well, yeah, like spectacularly. I mean, like, honestly, total kudos to the train workers and like that. Like, the Union Pacific Railway, because holy smokes, that was fast. Like, that'd be fast now, considering like the type of communication they had then of just like looking in the distance and shouting at each other. Like smoke and other stuff.
Frank McKinney, one of the gang members, wasn't about to walk away empty-handed and reached for
course
his
not.
revolver.
Mm.
George and Frank Toll, another gang member, stopped Frank from shooting the section crew, reminding him that they
Good.
were just doing their job.
Yeah.
They have nothing
And
to do with
they're
it.
not they don't have money.
Mm-hmm.
They're just in dire straits as they are. That was nice. Well, it's nice to know that they had some weird form of
Moral
justice
code.
and morality.
And so the frustrated gang had to watch as their payday rolled past on the repaired track.
It's a bummer.
Somehow, word that George and his gang were in the area reached the local authorities,
Of
prompting
course.
Wyoming Deputy Sheriff Robert Whittlefield and Union Pacific Detective Henry Tip Vincent to set out to capture them.
Ooh.
George and his men fled Medicine Bow River and headed 25 miles southwest to Rattlesnake Canyon, located at the base of Elk Mountain, where they set up camp.
Okay.
By the time the officers arrived at the canyon on August 19th, the gang had already fled, but the ashes of a hastily put out campfire were found.
Mm-hmm.
Deputy Sheriff Whittlefield knelt to inspect the ashes to determine just how recently the fire had been put out when a shot was fired from the nearby bushes, striking him in the face and killing him instantly.
Damn. Like they knew he was gonna say it out loud until they shot him in the face. Oh my god.
Detective Vincent turned and attempted to flee before he too was shot and killed.
That's insane. Let me guess. What was the Frank? No, but Frank's the violent one, right?
Frank was the one that wanted to shoot the real people. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Frank?
I have no idea who fired the shots.
Oh.
A bounty was immediately put out by the Union Pacific Railroad.
Yeah, two people got shot in the face. Oh my god.
But the bounty was to the tune of $10,000, or $321,000 today.
So the life insurance policy on those men were probably like astronomical. Because I
Probably.
suppose like a Union Pacific inspector, that's kind of like what I would assume like a jeweler, kind of like that level of insurance on you in case, because you're always handling high risk cases, kind of. Actually, isn't that the opposite though? Maybe they don't insure you at all because you're so high risk. I don't know. That's insane for those two people. Like 300. Oh my gosh. How is that possible? Wyoming.
The bounty was later doubled to $20,000, or $643,000 today.
Wow. Why so much? Was it just because, do you think it was because if they didn't like stamp it out, there would be a lot of copycats potentially?
Maybe, and also maybe because they realized they were trying to hold up the train that had arguably
Bunch of
probably
money.
more money than that
Yeah,
on board.
that's true.
So,
Like, yeah, I suppose because once they discovered one that the gang was looking at that car specifically that would have hackles raised, two, the fact that they didn't catch them, intense, and then three, now they're super violent because they killed two officers that were in like a fairly casual kind of quiet pursuit almost of like, hey, what's going on, who are you guys? Yeah, that escalated quick.
yeah, it
Holy
did.
smokes.
George and his gang were able to attack and rob a military convoy of 15 soldiers,
What?
2 officers, an ambulance, and the Army payroll in Milestown, which is now Miles City, Montana, that carried between $3,600 and $14,000, for $113,500 to $441,200 today.
How did they how with the military, how did they do that? That's insane.
I don't
15
know.
soldiers just like rolled on their bellies? Like I don't understand.
I don't know. But they did that in February of 1879. So that would have been like 6 months later, something along that.
Would have been really cold then too. Yeah. Oh my god. Wow. This is crazy.
George and most of his men were able to successfully evade capture for the next 2 years after they split up, heading in different directions.
Honestly, that man.
Mhm.
If they hadn't killed those two people, I'd be like, hell yeah. But no,
Yeah,
I kind of no.
yeah. Frank Toll, the really angry guy,
Yeah, the angry guy that didn't like rail workers. Got it. Yeah.
was the first of the gang to be killed in September of 1878, so before the big raid, while attempting to rob the Black Hills stage line.
Good. He was a jerk.
As noted in edition of the Democratic leader, quote, shortly after the murder, and so this was shortly after the murder of the two officers, one of the gang, named Charles Bates, alias Dutch Charlie, was captured, and while being taken from Laramie to Rawlins in charge of the deputy sheriff of Laramie County, was taken from the train at Carbon by a number of masked men and hanged to a telegraph pole, a punishment which, though illegal and severely condemned by law-abiding people, was certainly richly merited. End quote.
Damn.
So Dutch was apprehended on New Year's Eve, 1879, by a former Albany County sheriff named N.K. Boswell, who took a train to Green River to return him to Rawlins for trial. However, on January 5th, while the train was stopped at Carbon City between Laramie and Rawlins, a lynch mob grabbed Dutch and ended his life.
Dang. I feel like that was way more common during that time in the Wild West of like,
Yeah, mob justice.
yeah, I feel like mob justice was way more prevalent during that time of like, nope, we don't want to give this person a second chance. They're done.
Well, and the two officers that had been murdered were extremely well known in Carbon City. So that didn't really help
Yeah.
Dutch's case.
Yeah. Eye for an eye kind of a thing, it sounds like.
Not long after this, George got drunk one night in July of 1880 at a bar in Milestown. He made the mistake of boasting about the killings to a saloon dancer.
Oh. Yeah. You mean like somebody who's like the best for gossip ever? A saloon dancer that would get like all of the tea?
Yeah. A telegram was sent to Sheriff James Rankin of Carbon County, who promptly set out and arrested George, hauling him back to Rawlins to stand trial.
Yeah, because I bet he would have to react within seconds or like he's gone.
News of the arrest made the August 11th, 1880 edition of the Democratic Leader, which reads in part as follows. Quote, about 3 weeks ago, Sheriff Rankin received information that Big Nose George was at Miles City, and with his usual promptness, started immediately for his man. His route was by Helena, Montana, from which place he had to endure 8 days of staging to Miles City, where he found and secured the Outlaw. The trip to Carbon was without incident. Side note, 8 days. Like, how long was George in this stupor? And I wonder how many people, like, did their best to keep him there, knowing that the sheriff was coming to get him.
Yeah. It
You know
kind
what
of
I
makes
mean?
you wonder, like, how orchestrated it was. Is that, yeah, to, like, how beloved were these people? And was it just, like, this crazy, well-developed plan by this town? Or, because, yeah, you're right, 8 days is insane. Like, how were they able to keep somebody who, for what you could assume would be looking over his shoulder constantly for the rest of his life? But maybe he was too cocky after getting away with it for 2 years at that point.
Maybe. He was like, I got nothing to lose. People here don't know what they don't know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Warned by the experience of the officer who had charge of Dutch Charlie, Rankin kept a sharp watch as he neared Carbon. But the friends of Whittlefield and Vincent were on the watch too, and, quote, got in their work, end quote, as the boys say, in good style. Before reaching Carbon, the sheriff took the precaution to hand over the keys of the prisoner's shackles and handcuffs to G.C. Smith, Esquire, the prosecuting attorney of Carbon County, who was on the train with him, a proceeding which gave the Carbonites a little extra work. The train rolled into Carbon without any sign of trouble. The stores of the town were lighted up as usual. In fact, a dance was in progress, and the sheriff drew a long breath of relief as he thought that danger was past. When suddenly, without a sound of warning, the car was filled with masked and armed men.
What?
One man seized the sheriff by the throat as he sprang to his feet and forced him over the back of the seat, choking him severely, while a couple of revolvers were thrust into his face with the gentle warning to keep still, an admonition which he did not heed. But his struggles were useless. He was overpowered by numbers, and his person searched for the keys. Failing to find them, one of the band started in search of a sledgehammer. Meantime, the prisoner was not idle, but with the grit, which is the only redeeming feature in the character of such villains, he watched his opportunity and quickly snatched a revolver from the hands of one of the men who had charge of him. Fortunately, his hands were fastened so tightly together that he was unable to bring the pistol to bear before he was seized and overpowered. By this time, the sledgehammer was brought, and the seat to which the prisoner was chained was battered to pieces, and the victim was in the hands of the avengers. A rope was thrown around his neck, and he was dragged out of the car to a corral near at hand, and there hoisted up until he professed a willingness to confess everything.
Damn.
He was lowered to the ground when he confessed that he was one of the gang who murdered the officers, and that Dutch Charlie, whom they had lynched 2 years before, was also a member of the band. After the confession, the prisoner, much bruised and rather sore about the region of the neck, was carried back to the car and delivered to the sheriff, very much to his delight, for he never expected to see him alive again.
Right.
The whole affair was conducted in a quiet and orderly manner, the attacking party insisting upon the preservation of silence while the work was going on.
Creepy.
The disciples of Judge Lynch had evidently planned well. On the arrival of the train, one party secured the engineer and fireman, while another politely invited the conductor to step into the express car and remain there, which invitation he appreciated and accepted.
Yeah. It's better than getting killed. It's probably the alternative.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'll sit here. Thanks. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
it's fine. Thanks. Yeah, this is great. This is great. Thanks, guys.
The train was delayed about a half hour, but arrived in Rawlins about the usual time.
That's so funny.
The prisoner was removed to the county jail without any trouble, and is now in the strong grasp of the law. This morning he gave a full confession of his crimes, and gave important information which, it is believed, will lead to the capture of several of the gang. Sheriff Rankin certainly deserves great credit for his courage and promptness in successfully effecting this capture, as it will undoubtedly lead to the breaking up of a gang of outlaws who have been the terror of the country in the vicinity and north of the Union Pacific Railroad. Mr. Rankin feels a little sore about the back this morning, but our amiable prosecuting attorney suffered no harm beyond the wound to his feelings.
I love that they said that.
He undertook to argue the case with the gentlemanly guards of the prison and sheriff, and had gotten as far as, quote, the point is just this, gentlemen of the jury, end quote, when he was ordered to shut up, which he immediately did, for the first time in his professional experience, without interposing a, but if you please. This court was too much for him. As a matter of course, we all deprecate such resorts to violent measures as this affair, but we have no doubt an occasional summary proceeding of this kind will prove a wholesome warning to the outlaws of Wyoming, as similar and more tragical occurrences have to the desperados of Colorado. End quote.
Nothing more tragical.
George's trial began on September 13th, 1880. He initially pled guilty to the charges on November 16th of 1880, but changed his mind, pleaded not guilty 2 days later.
Cute.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can change that in the court. Yeah.
Especially after giving a full confession. Yeah.
Yeah. More than once.
Yeah.
In front of 2 different groups of people, at least. Yeah.
Yep. He told his lawyer that he was named George Francis Worden and that he was born in April of 1843 in Dayton, Ohio. The December 16th, 1880 edition of the Democratic Leader included the following. Quote, "Court convened today at exactly 12 o'clock Sun Time. Judge Peck presiding, and immediately proceeded to business. The motion in arrest of judgment in Big Nose George's case was overruled. The court proceeded to recapitulate the several points in the evidence, especially those in which the prisoner changed his pleas. The court said it was satisfied that the prisoner was led to make his last plea of guilty from a sense of his guilt, that if the trial had progressed, the jury would certainly have brought in a verdict of guilty, that he had now come to the most solemn part of his duty under the law, that of pronouncing sentence upon the prisoner. The court seemed to fully realize the solemnity of the occasion, and proceeded to pronounce sentence, which is that George Parrott be hung by the neck between the hours of 10 o'clock a.m. and 2 o'clock p.m., Saturday, April 2nd, 1881, until he is dead. The prisoner completely broke down and was supported by 2 deputy sheriffs while sentence was being pronounced." End quote.
Yeah.
On March 22nd, 1881, 10 days before his scheduled execution, George attempted to make a last-ditch escape. Using a pocket knife that he had been able to hide on his person, he sawed through the rivets on his heavy leg shackles.
Of course he did.
As noted in the Democratic Leader, quote, "At 7:30 this evening, when jailer Robert Rankin entered the jail corridor to lock up the prisoners, he was attacked by Big Nose George, who during the afternoon had removed his shackles, which were very heavy and homemade. He used them for a weapon, striking Rankin over the head, severely cutting him in several places.
Dang, that would hurt, being hit with a shackle.
Mrs. Rankin, hearing the conflict, rushed to her husband's rescue, and locking the door, locked the jailer in with his prisoner. She then ran out into an adjoining room, getting a revolver, while a sister of Mr. Rankin ran downtown to raise an alarm. A large number of persons thereupon hastened to the jail, helped to secure the prisoners, and release the jailer, who was seriously injured.
Yeah, because I bet he kept hitting him when she locked him in there.
There is intense excitement in town tonight, and strong talk of lynching Big Nose George. Extra guards have been placed at the jail, and every precaution taken to prevent an escape." End quote.
This is just crazy. Like, the amount of commotion this man brings to a situation. Like, he really knows how to bring in a crowd, I tell you what.
I tell you what. I tell
you what.
What.
My God.
Once news of George's attempted escape spread throughout the city of Rawlins, an understandably irate mob of some 200 citizens stormed the jail, grabbed George, and dragged him out to the street.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't know if I would have stopped that or tried to.
Quote, "Big Nose George was taken out of the jail by a party of masked men at 10:55 tonight and taken to a telegraph pole opposite the railroad machine shops, where a rope was thrown over a cross arm of the pole, and Big Nose George was made to climb up a ladder, when the rope was placed around his neck, and the ladder then pulled out from under him, letting him swing between heaven and earth. His last words were, 'I will jump off, boys, and break my neck.' At first, after being taken from the jail, he was placed on a barrel, the rope adjusted about his neck, and then the barrel was kicked out from under him. This only had the effect of choking him a little. because then the rope broke.
Yeah.
He was then lifted up and compelled to ascend the ladder, carrying the rope with him. He begged piteously to be shot and said it was mean to hang him, but his appeals were in vain, end quote.
All of this is just insane. Like, it's just insane.
George's body was left hanging for several hours until the undertaker came to cut him down. By the time his body was finally brought down, the rope, because he had been like
Mm-hmm.
almost strangled twice, it had rubbed
Mhm.
his ears clear off.
That's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Local doctor John Eugene Osborne took possession of George's remains to study his brain because he had no family in the area. So he was like, I'll take him,
Yep.
which he sent to Union Pacific Railroad physician and surgeon, Dr. Thomas McGee.
I love that the Union Pacific Railroad had a physician. That's
And
normal.
surgeon.
Yeah. I don't like that they had to have their own professional.
They were hoping that examining the brain itself would physically reveal his quote-unquote criminality.
Of course.
Unfortunately, once they sawed off the top of George's skull and compared his brain to a quote-unquote normal one, they couldn't determine a difference.
Yep.
It's after this seemingly innocuous experiment on George's remains that things quickly moved from quote-unquote in the name of science to quote-unquote way off the deep end.
Oh, no.
Dr. Osborne fashioned a death mask for George using plaster of Paris, a technique we have seen in the past. Death masks are nothing new, although it is no longer commonly practiced. What wasn't so normal was when he removed skin from George's thighs and chest before sending them to a Denver tannery with a set of particular instructions. The quote-unquote hide, which included George's nipples, was to be transformed into a medicine bag and a pair of men's shoes.
This was the Union Pacific surgeon?
No, this was the local doctor.
The local doctor? Yeah, I don't think I would go to him anymore. I'd rather die of dysentery than have that man look at me ever. Man's a serial killer, bro.
Fun fact, when Dr. Osborne received the shoes, he was sad that they didn't have the nipples.
He should be relieved that he didn't go to prison.
The rest of George's remains were placed in a whiskey barrel with a solution of salt.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for George, Dr. Osborne continued to perform bizarre experiments on his remains for the following year.
I hate that.
Eventually, the experiments stopped, and the barrel, with George inside, was buried behind Dr. McGee's office and promptly forgotten. That is, until a few years later, when Dr. Osborne decided to get into politics.
Oh, was he wearing his human shoes?
He would go on to become the first Democratic governor of the state of Wyoming and serve as assistant to the Secretary of State under the direction of President Woodrow Wilson, who held office from 1913 to 1921.
I hate this.
Fun fact, Governor Osborne wore the infamous skin shoes at his inaugural ball in 1893.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Man, what a fucking creep. I'm so sorry. Like, that's just so disgusting.
Second fun fact, before entering office, while he was still a doctor, Dr. Osborne gifted the sawed-off skull cap of George Parrott to his assistant, Lillian Heath, who was 15 at the time. Lillian would go on to become the first female physician in the state of Wyoming, and throughout her career, she would use the skull cap as an ashtray, a flower pot, and later as a doorstop.
Wow. Way to do no harm before you did the oath to do no harm.
Dr.
Cool.
Osborne would go on to be the director of Rollins National Bank on Cedar Street. I'm assuming this is sometime after his stint in Washington, where he proudly displayed the shoes in a glass case in the front lobby.
Disgusting.
Big Nose was all but forgotten for 70 years, until May 11th, 1950. On that date, construction workers made a horrifying discovery when they unearthed a whiskey barrel full of bones while excavating for a new department store at 5th and Cedar Streets.
Of course.
Once the barrel was opened, inside was a bottle of vegetable compound, a skull with the top sawed off, several bones, and a pair of shoes. Dr. Lillian Heath, who at this time was in her 80s but still very much alive,
Mm-hmm.
was contacted, and the skull cap in her possession was requested. Once it arrived on the scene, it was placed atop the skull in the barrel, and lo and behold, it was a perfect
Perfect
fit.
fit. Terrifying.
Wyoming state archaeologist Mark Miller, along with renowned forensic anthropologist George Gill, conducted a study on frontier violence in 1995, during which they reunited the two halves of George's skull once more.
Mm-hmm.
Today, the Carbon County Museum in Rawlins, Wyoming, is home to the bottom part of George's skull, his death mask, as well as the skin shoes, which are on permanent display.
I hate that. I really do. I hate that they're still displaying it.
Yeah. The Sweetwater County Historical Museum in Green River is home to George's .44 caliber Remington New Model Army percussion revolver. It had been in storage in the museum's collections, and it wasn't until 2024 that it was rediscovered by Dick Blust, a member of the museum staff. George's gun ended up in Sweetwater after it was acquired during Dutch's arrest, and it managed to get into the hands of Michael Dankowski, a former county sheriff in the 1930s and 40s, whose son inherited and donated the gun to the museum in the 1960s.
I hate that. That they just kept handing off this gun, and then the son was like, no, like, this belongs at a museum. This is not mine. This is
not my beautiful house.
I don't want this.
Fun fact, although it can't be proven that the gun is that of Big Nose George, there is one interesting observation that could make it accurate. During the Wild West, it was common for outlaws to make notches on the grip of their guns to note how many people they killed. And the weapon in question had 2 notches, which could represent the 2 men that were shot at Rattlesnake Canyon.
Yeah.
The skull cap, belonging to Dr. Lillian Heath, has been donated to the Union Pacific Museum in Omaha, Nebraska, where you can also see the shackles that were used during his lynching.
Great.
And the medicine bag that Dr. Osborne had made with George's skin has never been found.
I bet he was buried with it, like a creep.
Or it's just in storage somewhere.
No, he's got it.
Well, Dr. Osborne passed away at the age of 84 in Rawlins in 1943. So it's entirely possible that it was buried with him, but
it's totally there. He's too much of a creep to lose, quote unquote, something like that. People like that don't lose items like that.
Well, he didn't have his shoes anymore.
Yeah, I think he probably had to part with those. I have a feeling that was probably pretty apparent, which would make sense as to why the medicine bag disappeared once the shoes were donated, or like around the time the shoes' origins were kind of more solidly said. I don't know. Yeah, has anybody really looked into that doctor? Because I bet he killed a bunch of people or something. I don't like him.
Yeah, I don't know.
He seems like a total creep.
Yeah, I don't know any more about him, but yeah, he does not sound like...
I used to work with doctors, and I can guarantee that none of them have ever thought about having a pair of their patient's shoes made into shoes, so...
I don't know. Don't like it.
I hate it. Thank you, but no thank you so much.
So yeah, that was George Big Nose Parrott, and his unfortunate transformation. Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
There's no podcast plug this week, but we do have a
Okay.
listener question from Carrie Ann, who would like to know, who would you choose if you could be friends with a fictional character?
If I could be friends with a fictional character. That's so hard. That's so hard. Oh my god. How could you just pick one? I don't know. I kind of want to pick like an animal because the idea of having like one of the like cartoon kind of, you know what? Yeah, the tiger from the K-pop Demon Hunters. I want to ride Derpy into the sunset. He
Here.
can take me places.
I'm Derpy.
Yeah. That's the one that comes to mind first. Is like I love that like it could be like a person, but I find fictional animals to be so much more endearing.
I would choose Toothless.
Yes. See? Yeah. Something big and fun that you could like cuddle with, but also like ride into the sunset. Could be fun.
Yeah, Toothless for sure. If I had to choose one.
Yeah, because at least Toothless is like derpy and cute instead of like the Game of Thrones dragons where like if you piss them off that you don't know if they're gonna eat you or not.
Or like Blue, the Velociraptor, which would totally eat you.
Oh yeah. Like if you didn't have her dinner on time, your dinner. Like congratulations.
And she wouldn't let me ride her. Let's be
No.
real.
She wouldn't.
Toothless, on the other hand,
Toothless is like, hey, this is cool. And I feel like Derp would just be like, okay. I feel like he would accept it.
I mean, he let the sassy crow ride on his head all the time.
Yeah. I love that we both chose animals. That's perfect. We chose the bear.
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, CastBox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
All right, what's something good you'd like to share?
Trying to think of something fun. We've had good things this week. Oh, I finally figured out I mastered how to do a Jell-O mold this week.
Nice.
Which is, it seems so silly, but I got, so for my birthday or Christmas or some sort of, I was gifted these adorable little silicone molds that are like floral, and like one of them's like in the shape of a heart, and you should be able to make like chocolates or Jell-O or whatever. And I've made Jell-O as directed on the package in it, but it's always too watery. Like it's not thick enough. And so I finally got some more like gelatin, like unflavored gelatin, and I added a couple more scoops, and now they're like perfect little wiggly molds. And my stepdaughter and I have been just like having the best time making those different flavors every time.
Nice.
But we've been on a Jell-O kick, so that's our new kind of cold dessert that's satisfying on the hot day, you know. We've kind of gone through our ice cream stash and Jell-O and then like cold fruits. So
What is something good? I'm going to go visit a friend. I'm going to be driving to go see her. I haven't done a 4-hour drive in a long time, so I'm going to have to get my podcast queued up to listen to on the...
podcast queued up, and then make sure you have a good like blood pumping playlist to when you start your journey and like the last 20 minutes before you get there. That always helps get you through that last hour.
But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm finishing up my laundry and stuff so I can pack later.
I'm finishing up our laundry too, but that's just because it's Sunday, so.
Yeah. Anyway, shall we?
Let's do it.
We love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Madison.
and we'll see you next time with another tale
As old as crime.